Well, if you're going to YCS Atlanta this weekend, your metagame is an actual shit show. So, what is up, guys? I'm Cavordi here. I actually wanted to do more of a formal discussion on this, actually sitting at my tabletop talking, but I don't have the time today to do that outside of getting dinner. So, let's discuss this, shall we? First thing on the agenda, you should be aware that Pendulum, Magician, and Trick Stars are still projected to be the best deck. Now, that's not without saying that the other 9 decks on the chopping block aren't as good, but they're there. You know, Pendulum Magician can still make the absolute most disgusting board. Get it? Odd-Eye's Absolute Dragon. Yeah. That, Vortex, Naruto Man, Decode Talker. A lot of builds are playing Zephyra Metatron right now because double Electromite gets you into it. There's a lot of cool things that the deck can do in a not defined format because everyone's playing subpar ideas trying to figure out where the fuck they want to go. So, if you're playing this weekend, should be no stranger to you that Pendulum, Magician, and Trick Stars are going to be literally the biggest pain in your fucking ass, like you could actually imagine. And then moving on along to the, we're going to call it the subpar category. Everyone's going to argue with me and say the True Draco should be a tier 1 deck as well, and I absolutely agree with you until I watched Dino Dolls tear apart True Draco. I was just like, oh, that's kind of cute. So there's a reason why diagrams have gone up in price. There's a reason why Demise is still at 3, but in the grand scheme of things, with the way that Pendulum Magician is going, Pendulum Magician has consistency on its side. I would almost argue the same thing with Trick Stars. And in that subcategory, the first one up, True Draco. Now, Masterpiece is a hell of a card. We know this. Masterpiece has been one of the most ridiculous cards to date in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Let's be absolutely real here. You know, the ability to control situations, the ability to clean up the situations, and have a soft protection from the field spell. Yeah, it's pretty good. And just the amount of, like, turboing that you can get into your cards. Yeah, the deck deserves its spot on the food chain. But kaijus have returned to the metagame. Like, if you're playing in this metagame and you're not actively using some sort of kaiju to its fullest, whether or not it be in the side or the main deck, then I just don't think you're playing this format correctly, unfortunately. You know, we've been seeing a lot of powerful decks using a kaiju engine. Invoked Hand Trap being one of those decks that has the ability to take advantage of it. And then across the European pond, you know, Burning Abyss is also taking advantage of it. But at the end of the day, True Draco was the quote-unquote budget aspect until diagrams went up that a lot of budget players were looking to because they eventually had a chance to play it again. Now, on the flip side of that equation, I honestly think that this is a very good format for players because depending on how regional levels go, we might still have what we had before spirals were legal. You'll have the different decks topping YCSs with the occasional regional top, and then you're going to have the more degenerate tier 1.5 to tier 2 topping regionals. You know, it just honestly depends. You know, tier 1 can very easily be stopped at the moment by today's current metagame. Absolutely no reason why it can't. You know, kaijus kind of answer all. That's kind of the interesting thing about today's day and age. Now, across the pond, as I said, we've got Burning Abyss running amok. New Zealand, down in South America, it's kind of showing up everywhere. And a few players have kind of picked up on this, have been playing it in the TCG. But it takes a certain, I'm not going to say a certain kind of skill level to play the deck, but you have to know what you're doing, and you have to be willing to not waste your Beatrice shots. You know, there's a lot that Burning Abyss has going for that, yeah, a lot of other decks don't, and it's far from spot removal, honestly. You got to sit yourself up into a good position. You got to know what the fuck you're doing with the deck. I would honestly argue that there is many good Burning Abyss players out there as there are True Draco players that are good at the deck. You know, it's not saying a lot, but we've kind of reached a level in this game to where when we're on an even playing field like this before something like Needle Fiber releases, it degenerates the game, that all of these particular decks, as long as you're a good player, you can pilot them, which leads me into number 5 here of the good decks. You remember ABC? It's easy as 1, 2, 3. The deck is still at 150% power, and the way that that deck has been going as of late, there's something about ABC that, like, it seems like either only South America is really good with the deck, or it takes that one Japanese guy coming over from Japan to just wreck America. You know, it happens quite a lot, actually. But at the end of the day, ABC still has its full combos. I mean, I've seen Brilliant Fusion wreck some shit, and it was beautiful. I love it.
Thanks for choosing number 20. How can I help you?
Can I get a number 4, please? Medium-sized Coke no ice. Add onion on the sandwich. Chili.
Sorry?
Alright, number 4. Medium-sized Coke no ice. Add onion on it.
Okay.
And chili cheese fries instead of the regular fries.
Gotcha.
And junior bacon cheeseburger with no tomato, add onion. And that'll be it.
$12.39. Thank you.
Alright, thank you. Haha, food time. Food time. It's the best time for the metagame discussion. 3 Dragon Buster. Yeah, no one wants to deal with that. So, but it's still very much a good deck. One of the better ones out there, this current format. You know, on the flip side of the equation, you've got Dino Dolls, which has just kind of come back out of the woodwork with a little bit more unlimiting from the Shadal engine. Now that they've kind of freed up the woodwork for that deck, things are kind of getting a little bit better for Dino Dolls. The deck shits on Masterpiece, I've seen. Literally resolving double of the giant T-Rex man into just tearing apart the field. Like, it's so much value that it's actually just disgusting so far from what I've initially seen. Like, being able to Shadal fuse in the window to stunt the opponent's growth, allow no further advance from their field. Yeah, it's pretty fucking good with what the deck can actually do. And I for one am actually just kind of shocked that whoever ghetto threw this deck idea together deserves a lot of credit, because it's a lot of fun from what I've seen. Spirals should still be a deck that you're still very much afraid of. Double Rescue with all of the shenanigans that deck can still do. Yeah, it can still do it. Doesn't mean you want them to do it, but they can still do it. You know, now that Masterpiece has returned, you have more reason to play Kaijus, and Kaijuing a Sleepy Boy more now than ever hurts so much. Like, it's actually just kind of disgusting how much you paralyze a Spiral player just from answering their sleeper. You know, the deck kind of can't recover. The deck's kind of just a one-hit wonder, but Sleepy Boy does so much. You know, on the near the end of the equation here, you've got Paleo. I mean, it's Paleo. The deck is so slow that I think at the end of the entire quantum of decks, that Paleo is just the weakest. And the last thing I wanted to touch on is Zephyra and Metal Foe, and I'm going to combine them into the reference here. Now, they both rely on the pendulum mechanic. So Heavy Metal Foe's Electromite was a huge boost to them. I've seen a few people in the last Zodiac tournament experimenting around more so with Zephyra than anything, using the Mystical Cerberus engine, Providence to protect, Zephyrath to load up, you know, abusing 9 pillars, and the negations that Zephyra have built in. But the deck, without Ding Doodle, it's still kind of a former shell of itself. Yeah, there's still a lot of cute things that the deck can do, you know, grabbing Astrograph and cloning along with it today. But it's not that great. And now, the other deck that's on the other side doing really well right now is Metal Foe. Now, I don't think a lot of people actually considered Metal Foe even a relevant deck. And I saw that Aaron McGuinness topped actually, I think he won a regional recently, piloting Metal Foe. I've seen the deck be played a couple of times so far on Dueling Book, and I can say that I'm actually pretty impressed. Still being able to go into Alcahest to suck up the opponent's monster is actually still really fucking good. You know, full metal, full fusion combination. You know, a lot of the things that the deck can still do, they're still pretty much intact. So, playing this weekend, I would definitely still be aware that if you see your opponent placing Metal Foe scales, you kind of just prepare yourself. Now, if you're going for anti-meta, like stun, you might want to consider those anti-spells right now, because I've seen in a format where you've got Pendulum's predicted to be the best deck and you're trying to slow down Trick Stars, it might not be such a terrible call to consider these things. You know, Spell Shattering Arrow is another great anti-meta card for popping scales. You know, there's a lot of things that you can still do to kind of stunt down the meta. You know, you're going into a format where you've got 11 decks that you could viably sit across the table and play against. Now, whether or not those 11 decks, half of them are good, truly, you know, leaves a lot to be desired, especially shit like Invoke Tantrap. Like, once again, half of these decks require a certain amount of skill. You know, ABC, Burning Abyss, Invoke Tantrap. It just kind of depends on your day and how you're feeling and if you're going to get in the top cut. You know, and we can't forget the 60 card Mayhem, you know. That's the last deck on the Conundrum. 60 card anything, World Chalice. World Chalice also kind of counts, but we're not going to talk about World Chalice. 60 card anything right now. Grass is a hell of a drug right now, but the problem with Grass in today's metagame, you have to draw it. If you don't draw into Grass, you're going to be in a shit show. You have to be able to resolve it. 60 card decks, you got to be aware that they exist. You got to be aware of what's coming. But if you check them correctly, you know, this includes the zombie builds, the Infernoid builds, fucking whatever the hell else 60 card players are playing in today's day and age. As long as you're aware of what you're playing against, you shouldn't be in a total shit situation. So just be aware that it pretty much, it exists. And if it exists, you should be able to play against it. So that's my little YCS Atlanta update. If you guys are going this weekend, best of luck. I unfortunately won't be there. Second Atlanta in 2 years that I get to miss. Fucking prior commitments, man. They really suck, but I'll be at Memphis for what that matters. Then we're going to take the 17-hour drive to fucking Dallas for WCQ. Oh, man. Time to cry. Maybe the U.S. or maybe the Midwest will get 2 YCSs this year to make up for no nationals. I'll have to wait and see. Alright, guys. Best of luck, my brothers.